Okay, well, I've got Mark and Dave from Fine Lines here, and like I say, a big welcome to Beardy. It's not your first Beardy, though, is it?
It is for Dave.
It is my first Beardy, yes.
Your first? Oh,
yes.
it's like me, it's my first.
Yeah, I was here not last year, the year before, when the main stage was at the bottom of the hill here. And so we had a lovely time, yeah. So, no, it's great to be back. It's a beautiful spot, isn't it? It's incredible.
It's
amazing,
gorgeous, yeah. And we've struck lucky, I think, today.
Yeah.
But, Mark, tell us about your musical world, because, you know, I mean, you're very, very well known for your radio presenting and for the, what is the benchmark programme on Radio 2 each week. Folk show.
Well, it's the only one. I mean, I suppose it sets its own standard, whether that be good or bad. But yeah, no, it's the only national one, which is a shame, really. Yeah. I'm always trying to do something about that. I'm always trying to get Six Music to do a folky kind of show. With a bit more sort of folktronica and a bit more sort of left field psych folk and things. But it's work in progress. I'm hopeful we'll get there one day.
Yeah. A folk is such a broad church, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what about your background in folk? I mean, how has that sort of come about? Have you been a musician for many years?
Well, I mean, there are some who say I'm still not, but I mean, I've always been in bands since I was 14, and really, folk was just part of the tapestry. Really, when I was young. And I think we're getting back to this a bit, really. You didn't really think, oh, I mustn't like that because it's folk and I'm a heavy metal fan or something. You know, I mean, people like Steel Eye Span and Cat Stevens and Ralph McTell and all those guys, they were in the charts. And so, you know, I just sort of, Lindisfarne, I didn't think about it being folk. It just was songs that I liked. And then we started going to the folk clubs around Bolton, like West Orton Folk Club, mainly because we were young, but you could get a drink, I think, really. Yeah. But from a very early age, from a very young gig-going age, I always loved the atmosphere and the informality of the folk clubs. And I always loved the way that people told long, rambling stories into the songs, you know, and from that came... You know, your Mike Hardins and your Billy Connolly's and your Max Boyce's and your Jasper Carrots. And there was a guy around Bolton called Bob Williamson who I was a big fan of. And I thought, well, that looks like a good way to do it. So it's a bit like doing a radio show, really. That, you know, you take a rambling, roundabout route to the song, and hopefully it's funny. And that was the sort of alternative comedy to like Bob Monkhouse and Bernard Manning on the telly and that. So from then that really appealed, yeah.
Yeah. Dave, just to bring you in, there's a lovely story about how you got Mark to join Thin Lines.
Well, yeah, we met in the pub, I think, didn't we? In
Builder's Arms.
Builder's Arms. Introduced through a mutual friend, and we just got chatting. I'd been in a band previously, which had just split up, so I was in the pub just tearing my hair out. Mark said to me, what are you going to do? I said, oh, you know, probably do a solo acoustic thing. I've fancied doing a sort of folky acoustic thing for a while. And he said, well, if you need a drummer, I'll do it.
So that blew the solo thing.
So yeah.
That's left him running a 7-piece band now, thanks to me.
So what I intended to be a solo project ended up being a 7-piece band, much to my chagrin. Although I can't blame anyone else, it's my fault. But yeah, and so it just developed from there, really.
Yeah, but why drummer, Mark?
I always was a drummer, and it's my favourite thing. I mean, I only ever started singing out of necessity when I formed my first band in Bolton, the Berlin Airlift. I was 14 years old. There was me and 3 guitarists. I think the bass player probably just played the bottom 4 strings of a guitar. I don't think we had a bass. No one else would sing because they were all looking at their fingers to see what the chords were. Yeah. So I said, right, well, I'll sing and play the drums until one of you is good enough on the guitar to sing as well. And I was still waiting for that until I met Dave 50 years later. And so I've always sung and played the drums. I mean, I played the guitar as well, you know, a bit. But and obviously as I became known on the radio and for the radio programs, people coming to the bands wanted to hear me talk as well as hear the songs. And so that meant I had to sort of be at the front. So I played the drums standing up for a bit with a group I was in for about 12 years called the Family Mahone. But it is my favourite thing, drumming, and the wonderful thing for me in Fine Lines. I mean, it's very creative for me because Dave and I write the songs together. I write the words, he writes the music, basically. But when it's live, I I sit at the back on the drums. I don't sing, I don't talk. We don't really use my name, you know, and that's...
Well, you said you just wanted a project that you could just be the drummer and not have to front it, or not have to sing, or not have to talk, and just play the drums, because I don't, as you just said, I mean, you've not had opportunity to do that before.
Do you get people, I can imagine sitting in the audience thinking, I think I know that chap.
It's happened. It has happened, and that's great, you know, that's great, but some festivals they sometimes put fine lines featuring Mark Radcliffe, and we always say, no, don't put that, because if you put that, they'll be expecting me to be one of the singers or the frontmen in the group. They won't be expecting me to be sitting at the back, looking at my watch and checking messages while Dave's talking. So it does happen, but you know.
We'll look for that later. See if Mark's sitting at the back checking his checking
the football scores, probably.
Not after last night.
What about the young people coming into the folk music scene now? I mean, you know, there are so many young singer-songwriters, very talented people, all sort of classing themselves as folk singers and presenting themselves for radio play and such like. I mean, you know, do you find that's a very vibrant area?
It is vibrant. I mean, what do you mean by folk music, really? I mean, someone who's ultra trad, you know, just because you're a singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar doesn't make you a folk artist. You know, I think folk music still has to have something of a sort of commentary of the times we're living in. I think it still has to be sort of the voice of the working man and woman, really. I think that it has to have some kind of commentary or historical. It's got to be more than just singing love songs, I think, for it to be folk music. I think the sound of folk music can be many different things as well. I think you can use electronica in it and things, and you know, I think it's good that it moves on. I mean, the thing that's happened in folk, which was amazing over the past few years, is the standard of traditional musicianship, because you've got all these conservatoires and university degrees, so you've got people who can play anything by the age of 21. Anything, and that's great, but I always just say, but where are the songwriters going to come from? You know, you can play folk fiddle to grade 8 or 80, I don't know, and that's great, but someone has still got to at some point write something about the times we're living in that those people are going to play on. We can't all do just the same tunes forever, and so I think the singer-songwritery thing, I think that has been there has been a sort of gratifying explosion of that, really. And you know, I've always found the folk world to be very welcoming. There are ultra tradists who sort of, you know, dismiss people a bit sort of snobbishly sometimes, in my view. But I mean, some of them are just protecting the old ways, and that's good. But I think it has been massively welcoming to most young people.
It's the writing of the songs, isn't it? You know, I mean, what I found is that's almost that's a natural ability, I think, to be able to observe life and write songs about it.
Yeah, I mean,
you can learn elements of it, can't you? But it's essentially it's something that you've a natural ability, as you
like
say.
poetry. And
I think it's funny with songs. It's like when people say, "How do you write a song?" And I'm still not sure, really. I mean, perhaps the pertinent question was, how do you write a good song, and will you ever manage it? But I mean, it's like, how do you write a song? And I don't really know. I've written music, I've written words, I've written on my own, I've written with Dave, and I'm still not really sure. And at the moment, with Fine Lines, I tend to write words completely without any thoughts of tune and send them to Dave. That's the way we've worked with that up until now.
So what happens about putting the tune to Mark's words then?
Well, I mean, I'd never written like that really before Mark and I started writing together. So it was a very, like when Mark said he had some lyrics that he thought would be good for the band. I mean, there's a certain amount of trepidation at first. I was like, oh, well, you know, I hope it's something that I can sing, that I feel I can sing, but also I hope I do it justice, you know, because if Mark gives you something that's really great and you don't want to, you know, arse it up, basically.
Although that has happened.
I'm going to say, what happens when you get it back?
Well, it's always a nice surprise, because I don't know how... I mean, I've sent Dave ones, and then he'll send me it back, and it'll be this big sort of punch the air thing. I said, I thought that was going to be quite a quiet one.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
But it's what what I will say about it is that it's been the most natural process in the world, and just like a godsend for me, because I would sort of spend months and months writing lyrics and find it really arduous and difficult, whereas now Mark kind of does all the hard work for me, or the things that I found difficult anyway. Yeah. So it comes to me, and then when I've written the tune, then there's a finished song. But most of the songs have been written very, very quick. I don't know how. I mean, it might have taken Mark weeks to write the lyrics, but certainly my bit, I found it super easy to write melodies to. I just reading those words, and quite often you just writing those songs in the time it takes you to read the words. And I don't know where that comes from. I don't that ease, that, I'm not saying I'm amazing at it. They might be rubbish, but
they always scan, because I'm a singer and I'm a drummer, so they always rhythmically write. I know they've got the right number of syllables. So
it's not just a string of words.
It's not just an essay.
No.
They do this.
And there's minimal amount of editing. Quite often Mark will write a lot more than we need. They might give me a lyric and there might be 6 or 7 verses. Whereas being a total pop kid, 9 times out of 10, I'll only take 3. But you might, chop up other bits and use them for bridges and stuff. But it's just been.
We have one recently. We've got a new song that we're doing called "The Lie of the Land," and that went backwards and forwards. And I looked back at the original lyric sheets and what it ended up, and there were 2 lines from the original song that have ended up in the song. 2 lines.
Well, that's often quite what happens. I'll write the melody, send it back to Mark, say, hey, what do you think of this? And then he'll decide he wants to rewrite all the words. No, leave it as it was. It was brilliant. Yeah.
Oh, well, we're a bit time pressed now because Mark's going to be playing. So thank you so much for chatting to me.
It's lovely to see you. It's lovely
Thanks
to be
for having
back
us.
here. Thanks very much.
Thank you.